He's an American professional golfer who's among the most successful golfers of all time. He's been one of the highest paid athletes in the world for several years. He's been the world #1 golfer for the most consecutive weeks. He's Tiger Woods.
There are moments in sports that stop everything. Moments that make millions of people set down whatever they are doing and stare at a screen in disbelief. On March 27, 2026, Tiger Woods created one of those moments, and this time it had nothing to do with a birdie putt or a tournament victory. It had to do with a Range Rover lying on its side on a quiet road in Jupiter Island, Florida, and a man who had spent decades building one of the most recognizable names in the history of professional sports now sitting in the back of a police vehicle. For those who had watched his recent return to the game with genuine hope, the news hit particularly hard. Just days earlier, he had been on a golf course again, doing what he was born to do. Now, everything had changed in a matter of minutes, and the questions surrounding his future have never felt more uncertain. The crash occurred just after 2 in the afternoon on a Friday, only days after Woods had made his return to professional golf by competing in the TGL finals. According to authorities, a pressure cleaning truck was traveling northbound on South Beach Road on Jupiter Island when it began pulling into a driveway and slowing down. The driver of the truck saw a Land Rover approaching at high speed and tried to edge off the road, but was unable to clear the way in time. The vehicles collided, and what followed was the kind of scene that generates headlines for weeks. Woods' SUV rolled over onto the driver's side. He was able to crawl out through the passenger side door. Neither Woods nor the other driver was injured. In the immediate aftermath, that last detail felt like a small mercy inside a very large crisis. When Martin County Sheriff John Budenseek addressed the press, he left very little room for interpretation. He confirmed that Tiger Woods was arrested for DUI, property damage, and refusal to submit to a lawful test. According to the sheriff, Woods appeared lethargic on the scene and showed signs of impairment. Deputies administered a breathalyzer test at the scene, and the result was striking for a different reason than most people expected. Woods took a breathalyzer test that came back with a reading of 0, detecting no alcohol whatsoever. That single fact would become central to the conversation that followed, because it raised the immediate and unavoidable question of what, if not alcohol, had affected his ability to drive safely that afternoon. The answer began to emerge in the hours and days that followed. According to an arrest affidavit, when deputies asked Woods whether he had consumed any prescription medication, he replied that he takes a few. When he was later searched after his arrest, 2 white pills were found in his pants pocket that had identifying marks revealing them to be hydrocodone. This detail carried enormous weight for anyone familiar with Tiger's history, because hydrocodone was also among the substances found in his system during his first DUI arrest back in 2017. The connection was impossible to ignore, and it transformed what might have been a single isolated incident into something that demanded a much broader conversation. The body camera footage released by the Martin County Sheriff's Office added further detail to what unfolded on that road. In the video, Woods can be seen wearing a blue polo shirt and leaning against a patrol car while failing a field sobriety test. According to the accident report, Woods was sweating profusely and limping and stumbling to the right following the crash. In one part of the footage, Woods told a deputy calmly that he had looked down at his phone and all of a sudden there was a boom, meaning he had not noticed the truck slowing down because he was distracted at the wheel. A deputy then informed him that a medic would come and check on him. Later in the footage, after the sobriety test was conducted, the deputy told Woods directly that he believed his normal faculties were impaired and that he was under the influence of an unknown substance, before placing him in handcuffs. After his arrest, he was transported to Cleveland Clinic ER South, where he refused any treatment. He was then held in the Martin County Jail for 8 hours, which is standard protocol in DUI cases in that jurisdiction, before being released late that evening. Woods was formally charged with 1 count of driving under the influence and 1 count of refusal to submit to a urinalysis test. He entered a written plea of not guilty, opting to waive his personal appearance at the arraignment scheduled for April. A judge later granted his request to seek treatment outside the United States, and Woods traveled to Zurich, Switzerland, where he underwent both physical and psychological treatment. The legal case was now underway, and so was a deeply personal chapter that would keep him away from the sport entirely for months. What made this moment particularly difficult to process was the context of his recent months. Woods had not simply been sitting still. He had been working, healing, and slowly finding his way back to competition despite a body that had endured almost incomprehensible punishment. He had suffered a ruptured Achilles tendon in March 2025 and had undergone back surgery in October of that year. His appearance in the TGL finals was his first return to professional golf since those procedures. The Masters was right around the corner at the time of the crash, and while Woods had not confirmed whether he would compete at Augusta National, he had repeatedly left the door open in recent weeks. In the body camera footage taken at the CNE, he was captured saying quietly that he had been hoping to play in the Masters. That single line, spoken in the immediate aftermath of a crash that put him in handcuffs, said more about the cruelty of his situation than almost anything else could. Augusta National Golf Club chairman Fred Ridley released a statement saying that the club and the Masters tournament fully support Tiger Woods as he focuses on his well-being, and that although Tiger would not be joining them in person, his presence would be felt in Augusta. That statement was gracious, but it also confirmed what was now becoming real. A man who had won that tournament 5 times, who had wept in his father's arms after his first Masters victory at age 21, who had delivered perhaps the greatest individual sports comeback in history when he won again in 2019 after years of surgeries, personal difficulties, and public doubt, would not be walking those fairways this spring. Because of the incident, he also missed the PGA Championship, as he was prioritizing his rehabilitation abroad. The legal situation itself is not simple, and experts have been careful to explain why. Florida law does permit a person to refuse a chemical test, but that refusal is not without consequences. The circumstances of Woods' arrest bear similarities to his May 2017 arrest, after which prescription drugs were found in his system including hydrocodone. In that earlier case, he had been found asleep behind the wheel of a parked car with the engine running. He eventually pleaded guilty to reckless driving and received 12 months of probation, 50 hours of community service, fines, and required treatment including a program to address his dependence on medication. The 2026 case is being treated as a new legal matter, but the pattern it reveals is one that analysts and legal commentators have pointed to repeatedly. The question of whether Woods had adequately addressed the underlying issues that contributed to his 2017 incident now hangs heavily over his current situation. It is important to look honestly at the full history here, because it provides context that explains why this arrest resonated so deeply beyond simply being a celebrity in trouble with the law. During his interaction with deputies following the crash, Woods himself told officers that he has had 7 back surgeries and over 20 operations on his leg. That statement, offered matter-of-factly in the midst of everything, painted a picture of a man who has spent years trying to manage extraordinary physical pain. His 2021 crash in Los Angeles County had been catastrophic. He was seriously injured in that accident, which shattered his right leg and ankle, and Woods has said it nearly led doctors to make a decision to amputate. The recovery from that alone would have broken most people. Yet he came back, competing at the Masters in 2022 and continuing to find ways to participate in the sport he had dedicated his entire life to, even as his body continued to present new obstacles. The use of powerful pain medications in professional sports, particularly for athletes managing chronic pain from repeated surgeries, is a subject that has received increasing attention in recent years. It would be too easy and ultimately unfair to reduce Tiger Woods' situation to simple poor judgment without acknowledging the physical circumstances that have surrounded his use of prescription medication over the years. His doctors, surgeries, and recovery programs have all been documented extensively. That does not remove personal accountability, but it does add a dimension of complexity that deserves to be recognized in any serious discussion about what happened on that road in Jupiter Island. When Woods broke his silence days after the arrest with a public statement, the tone was one of acknowledgement and commitment rather than deflection. He said that he knows and understands the seriousness of the situation he finds himself in today, and that he is stepping away for a period of time to seek treatment and focus on his health, stating that this is necessary in order for him to prioritize his well-being and work toward lasting recovery. He concluded by saying that he is committed to taking the time needed to return to a healthier, stronger, and more focused place, both personally and professionally, and asked for privacy for his family and loved ones. It was a statement that did not try to minimize the situation or shift responsibility elsewhere. Whether it is enough to satisfy public opinion is a separate matter, but the words themselves reflected a person who understood the gravity of what had occurred. The public reaction has been a mixture of genuine concern, disappointment, and in some corners, frustration. Fellow golfers competing at Augusta that week were asked about the situation repeatedly during practice rounds. Many expressed that his absence was unfortunate, acknowledging that even as they tried to focus on one of the most demanding courses in the sport, it was hard not to think about the 5-time Masters champion who was not there. That word, unfortunate, captured something real. There was no glee in the reaction from within the golf community. People who had watched him fight his way back from injury after injury understood the layers of difficulty involved in what he was now facing. From a broader perspective, The crash and its aftermath have reopened discussions about what the years of physical punishment in professional sports do to an athlete's long-term relationship with pain management. Tiger Woods turned professional at the age of 20 and spent decades subjecting his body to the physical demands of elite competition. He played through conditions and with injuries that most people would have used as reasons to step away entirely. The back surgeries alone were extensive, and each one carried recovery timelines that would have permanently ended the careers of many other athletes. The price of all of that ambition and dedication has been a body that has required serious medical intervention for years, and the substances found in his pocket on the day of the crash connect directly to that long history. What makes the legal outcome difficult to predict is that, while the breathalyzer showed 0 alcohol, Florida law allows refusal of a chemical test, but that refusal carries administrative and criminal penalties. Proving impairment in the absence of a chemical sample relies heavily on officer observations, the results of field sobriety tests, and the physical evidence gathered at the scene. The accident report documented specific observations including that Woods was sweating profusely and stumbling, which deputies cited as indicators of impairment. Combined with the failed field sobriety test and the discovery of hydrocodone on his person, prosecutors have a foundation to work from even without a urinalysis result. The arraignment and subsequent proceedings will determine how this unfolds, but the case is clearly not straightforward for either side. The impact on his professional standing extends beyond the legal proceedings. Woods had been building something in the months before the crash, cautiously and with significant physical limitations, but building nonetheless. His involvement with TGL, the technology-driven indoor golf league he helped create alongside Rory McIlroy, had given him a platform to remain connected to competitive golf even as his body restricted what he could do outdoors. His appearance in the TGL finals marked his first return to professional golf since his Achilles rupture and back surgery. There had been genuine optimism that this was the beginning of a new phase, one where he found ways to contribute to and participate in the sport within realistic boundaries. The arrest disrupted all of that momentum at what appeared to be an important moment in his recovery. There is also the matter of his broader legacy and what this means for how he will be remembered beyond his playing years. Tiger Woods changed golf in ways that go far beyond statistics. He brought audiences to the sport that had never previously engaged with it. He inspired generations of players across every background to pick up a club for the first time. His influence on the commercial and cultural reach of professional golf is immeasurable. That legacy does not disappear because of this arrest, but it does become part of a more complicated story, one that requires people to hold together extraordinary greatness and very human struggle at the same time. For many longtime observers of his career, that complexity has always been present. The extraordinary discipline and focus he demonstrated on the course coexisted with a personal life that has repeatedly, and often very publicly, revealed different qualities. The 2009 scandal, the 2017 DUI, the catastrophic 2021 crash, the years of surgeries and recoveries and tentative returns, and now this. The thread running through all of it is not simple recklessness or indifference, but something more difficult to define. It looks like a person of exceptional talent and achievement who has struggled, in different ways and for different reasons across different periods of his life, to manage what happens when the cameras are off and the galleries are gone, and it is just him navigating the ordinary and sometimes overwhelming difficulties of a human life. Woods returned from Zurich, Switzerland, after completing his physical and psychological treatment program, and he was recently seen attending Kai Trump's high school graduation party, suggesting he is reconnecting with life outside of the crisis that defined the spring of 2026. His legal case continues to move through the courts, and the golf world is watching carefully to understand what the next chapter might look like. The road back from here is not straightforward. The legal proceedings need to reach a resolution. His health, both physical and otherwise, needs to stabilize and improve. The trust of sponsors, fans, and the institutions that govern the sport needs to be carefully tended. All of these things are possible, but none of them are guaranteed, and none of them happen quickly. He has come back from situations that seemed equally or even more dire in the past. The 2019 Masters victory remains one of the most emotionally resonant moments in modern sports history precisely because it happened after so many people had concluded that his best days were behind him. Whether that kind of return is still possible, in some form, is a question that only time will answer. What can be said with certainty right now is that March 27, 2026, was a significant day in the life of one of the most storied figures in the history of professional sports. A quiet residential road on Jupiter Island became the site of another chapter in a story that has never been simple, never been predictable, and never been anything less than completely absorbing for the millions of people around the world who have followed this man's extraordinary, complicated, and deeply human journey. The game of golf has never had anyone quite like Tiger Woods, and even in its most difficult moments, his story continues to demand attention and reflection in equal measure.